said, right? Dream. Well, the problem is
Mm.
having fear, having doubt. It cultivates doubt. It makes you worry. What did I say? It makes you contract. It doesn't make you go outward. It doesn't make you go try new things, take the risk. Well, then you never know. You never can succeed. So your dreams are crushed. You don't have dreams. You don't have possibility. You don't have hope. And when you don't have hope, you have despair. And this is what we have done in the last 2 years. We've inflicted the world with fear.
All right, welcome to 2022. Happy New Year to everybody. This is our fourth episode of Live by the Sword with Grandmaster Taejoon Lee and Ferny Ceballos. That's me. And we've been off for a few weeks now, but we're back and settled in. And I'd love to touch on Grandmaster Lee. Thank you for being back. I hope you're doing well. And I'd love to dive into something that you shared with the entire World Hwa Rang Do Association, the community that we have, with your New Year's message. And if there is there anything you want to touch on before we get going? Because I do have some points that you raised that I'd love to ask you about.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Happy New Year. And it has been a crazy year, crazy last couple of years. And I did write a New Year's message. I would rather than just me going off and telling telling the whole thing. I'd rather to have a discussion with you about it.
Sure.
So you read it, and and we can just break it down and just kind of I don't know. I don't know where you want to start. Start from the beginning, but there are very important points there,
Mhm.
which I reiterate and talk about all the time, and that's foundational to what Hwarang Do is, and how we perceive and believe the world should be.
Yeah, yeah, and let's dive in, sir, because and we'll link to the full article inside the description of this video when it's published. So I think people can read it for themselves and interpret it, for whatever situation they want. But obviously, there's a situation going around the world that's been going on for 2 years that this definitely applies to. You start off by first talking about how we as human beings go from a state of innocence where we just are exploring and there's no fear. Where as kids we climb stuff, and then it's over time as we fall, scrape our knees, but most importantly when our parents, society starts instilling certain values in us, that fear becomes something that can become debilitating. And so if you can, you know, for you, how would you describe fear, and what's the purpose of fear? What role does it play in our lives, good or bad?
I mean, I wrote a whole thing on just I did breaking down fear, but um, hmm, the point that I was making in the paper, however, right, is fear is something that you learn. So, I start by saying that in our childhood, we're born innocent, we're born pure, and we don't know, everything is possible. And I made an example. When you're a kid, you think about being the fireman, being the president, being an astronaut, and whatever, and being all of that, not in progression, but all of them at one time. Everything is possible, and anything is possible. So it's this idea of wonderment, right? And they have so two things as foundational in that possessing innocence and the lacking of fear is you have, you wonder, meaning with your mind, your imagination, you're not bound, you're not limited, so it's limitless. So you think of all kinds of possibilities, and physically you wander, so you don't have a place to go, you don't have a destination. You just get up and walk, and you might walk in circles. Kids will get up and just spin around, or just run and bounce against walls, and there is no sense. Also, they're very free in their physical activity, and as well as their mental process. As we grow older, we learn boundaries, we learn limitations, and we learn what things we cannot do. We learn that we learned those possibilities now become confined, and depending now, right, on how much pain and suffering, hardship you've endured, and this is like, for instance, if there's some traumatic experience, some tragic experience, abuse, in these formative years as a child, these then create irreparable damage through all of our lives. Normal process or progress of living, and so forth. You're going to just understand limitations, what not to do, and the important thing with parenting, which we talked about in the last several discussions, and teaching, is actually, as parents and teachers, our goal is to limit fear. So to not be fearful. But on the average, most people, that's not the case. We externalize as parents when we become overprotective, and we're afraid of our children getting hurt. Then you make them also just as fearful, worrisome, etc. And so, it's unavoidable. Fear is unavoidable, but we in this is the whole discussion before, right? No one is taught really how to deal and process that fear, right? And that's the one most important thing, if anything else, that martial arts training, and if done properly, that's what it addresses. It addresses fear. Fear of injury, fear of death, the most important fear. There are many types of fear. Fear of embarrassment, right? Fear of the unknown, which is powerful, right? And we have to limit these things. And I say there, when fear, if there is no fear, what fear or what the consequences of our actions, that we get hurt from, we get heartbroken or physically injured, etc. Right? It is through these process of pain and in the endurance of suffering or hardship that we develop courage. If there is no fear, then we don't develop courage. And courage is what is necessary in order for us to take risk. And if you don't take risk, then there is no growth. You can't grow if you don't take risk. And also, you can't change if you don't take risk. If you only dwell in things which are familiar, then you will never grow, never change.
Mm-hmm.
right? And then in its worst levels, I say this is what the devil, fear is the tool of the devil, is what evil uses uh, and to destroy humankind, to make us be self destructive, as well as harming outwardly, in the way of fighting, war, etc. It's all fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think something happened a couple months ago, minor thing, and it was minor only because I've been trained by you, sir, and trained in martial arts. Is I was in Arizona. I took a trip for a business conference, and I stepped in a pothole. I didn't see the pothole, and I stepped and I fell. So I just fell, and I remember as I'm falling, like the thought of like, oh man, I can't fall. Like I'm gonna look really stupid because there's all these people around me. So the thought of embarrassment, the just the thought of like, can I, catch myself? But ultimately, like in that split second, I do remember my training, and always the thing I took away from learning how to fall was that the best thing I can do is actually fall and just prepare to fall and take the fall.
Yeah,
And so rather than stick my hand out because to try to avoid falling
yeah,
or try to somehow catch myself and escape the embarrassment, I just like whatever people think, it doesn't matter. Like I'm gonna
yeah,
take the fall. And so it was so crazy, like how all those things go to my through my mind as I'm falling, and then I fall. I'm with my buddy. He helps me up. I did scrape my knee, whatever, but it wasn't a big deal.
yeah,
And it was just like I'm so grateful for that lesson because I didn't fear the fall, and also just the fear of embarrassment. I was like, oh well, like most important thing is that I fall in the best way possible to not injure myself.
yeah,
And I think that was just a lesson in confronting fear because in the past I would be afraid to fall. I'd probably be do something stupid and stick my hand out and probably break my arm in the process of falling. And so the training was super powerful. And so can you kind of touch on that, sir? Like, because obviously there's something I was concerned about ultimately was, and we train, it's like we don't want to get hurt, so we are afraid or concerned about getting hurt, but there's all these other fears that also confuse the mind, um in the process something as simple like that happening. So how do you train your mind to confront fear, to face it, to accept certain outcomes, even when they're not desirable?
Well, see, this is where most people fail. Most parents fail. Most grown-ups fail when they teach their children, you know. And they it's you protect them and you become overprotective and you don't want them to get hurt. And so you don't expose them to it. That's your solution. The solution is to avoid
Mhm.
whatever the thing that might hurt or create difficulty, and that's the absolutely the wrong thing to do. So imagine, right? And every kid afraid of the dark or afraid of the monster under the bed or in the closet, right? So if your reaction is, oh yeah, mommy, I'm afraid to sleep alone in the dark. Come to the bedroom and can I sleep with you? Okay, honey. You know, and if that's your solution, right? Uh, then what have you just taught them, right? So what is the way you have to do it? The only way to deal with fear is to confront it. That's the only way. So, uh, if they say, "Oh yeah, I'm afraid of the dark," or "I'm afraid something's under my bed," or whatever, what do? You take the kid. Hey, look under the bed. Forget the flashlight, and check under the bed. There's nothing under the bed. Sleep in your own bedroom. Then whatever. Comes back running. Oh, mommy, I think there's something in the closet. Okay, you go open the closet. Hey, anything there? Nothing there. Okay, suck it up. Go to bed. Right? You have to confront it. And this is so important to teach from the very beginning. There is no way to rid of fear. There is no way to rid of things that might harm or injure you. Okay? There is no way. So this is the point that is made, right? And I quoted Nietzsche, but I've been saying this before. I've read Nietzsche on this issue or this part. I've always said there's prey and predator. There's the hunter and the hunted. That's it. So in the martial arts, there's a person that runs from a fight or stands and fights. So what we have to do, right? And this is the power we have, right? Is choice in what we do when we're confronted with fear. Do you run or do you fight? Okay, but Nietzsche says this is, if you are a proponent, a believer of evolutionary process and so forth, okay, then what he's stating is that we're born this way. You're born as prey. You're born as slave, and there are those who are born as predator, born as master. And people are born who are more fearful, who are more sheep, gathering in herds. And there are those who are born as wolves, who like to be alone, who thrive being alone. And they're born this way genetically. And that you cannot rid of your upbringing from not only you, your parents, but their parents and their parents, etc., generationally. And and my whole point is, we're not animals. We're not animals. We're not confined by instinct, by choices that we have, that or things or decisions that we have no participation in choice in making. Okay. And that is the uniqueness of humankind. And I reiterate this idea all the time, right? That's the area, that's the point. If our greatest attribute is our ability to think, reason, and logically solve issues and problems and create choices, then that's the ability that we have to enhance in everybody, from the youngest to the oldest. So
go ahead, sir.
So fear is a choice. So and then that is in the Buddhist context, in the martial arts too. It is the idea of being reactive and responding. So you don't just react to a situation. You respond to it. Right? Whatever the thing is, if you put your hand on a stove, yeah, the thing is to say, okay, yeah, that's hot, all right. Okay, now that's really hot. Okay, now, you don't need to go here and then, right? And that's the level of your own ability, understanding, your awareness of your capabilities, your limitations, your strength, your weaknesses. It's your greater sense of yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, right? All of that understanding of self-awareness, okay? And that's and belief, having belief in yourself, or having faith, right? That's going to give you that courage and that strength to be able to, okay, Do I react fearfully, or do I respond? You know, do I think it through? If you've never fallen before, you're afraid of falling. You think you were never going to fall, which is ridiculous, right? How are you never going to fall? If you walk, you're going to fall, right? You drive, you're going to crash. If you stand, you'll fall down. It's unavoidable. But this is the craziness, right? Many of the things we're not going to, that no harm is going to come to us, right? And somehow that can be avoided. This is, that's delusion. That's delusional. That's insanity. And, but that's the majority. That's the herd.
Yeah.
That's the herd mentality, right?
The herd,
Somehow in numbers, you're okay.
the herd needs a protector.
Is what?
I said the herd needs a protector. It's like they're not empowered to, protect themselves.
Well, the thing is that in the herd, they think it's not going to happen. Be
Mm-hmm.
in the herd, and somehow, if you do what everybody else is doing and you follow that, you're somehow immune to it, which is craziness. It doesn't happen that way,
Yeah,
right?
there's a distinction, sir, that I learned many years ago, and I think you used that language. The difference between decision and a choice. The word decide, the suffix means to kill, and when you're making decisions, you're literally allowing your circumstance, what you're afraid of, to determine what you do next. What your options are. Whereas choice, what the consequences of any of those choices are, but you don't allow circumstance to eliminate those options. You choose freely. Choice literally it means to be free in what you do next. And I think that, but that requires, like you said, courage. If you're fearful of what might happen if you choose something, the only anecdote for that, or antidote for that, is courage.
Well, first of all, fear, you can't think when you're under stress, in fear. Okay? So if you can't think, then you can't make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So so if you're fearful, right? Uh, you you can't make choice. That's why you end up dead. Okay? You don't want, so a prey, right? When you're afraid and can't make a choice, and you can't think, and and then you have that indecisive moment. That's when you get eaten, right? But even prey, right? And this is the idea of fight or flight, right? Instinct, and we all have that, right? Even prey, even a bunny, when chased by a hawk or whatever, when they're cornered, right, and say, okay, I got no other choice, they'll fight back. They'll fight back, right? So even an animal has that instinct, right? Human beings should have it, but sometimes that component is even somehow squeezed out of the person, and they completely surrender, rather than fighting, even though when all their options are taken away. Um, so um, fear is a mind killer. Fear contracts. Fear makes you hide. Fear makes you lie. Fear makes you cheat. All the evils is rooted in fear.
Well, there I'm friends with a researcher who took research that the Canadian government did on human behavior, and once that research funding got canceled, he took their findings, and basically what he what he came up with was that all major decisions, even especially buying decisions, what people choose to buy, um, in people's lives, is there's an element of fear in those what they do. Um, and but what he said was that when someone chooses to make a like they choose something, or they make a big purchase or something, or even a small purchase, like they choose to change their life in some way, they choose to get healthier. There is an element of fear that basically is the catalyst that begins part of that process, but that you can't actually move forward unless you now focus on vision or the goal or what's next. So you basically have to couple fear with the dream. So if you have fear dream, then that's what creates motion towards change. But fear by itself is paralyzing. And so I found that fascinating, because you mentioned fear is a tool of the devil. But I think what you're talking about is like we can reclaim that tool, and fear is not going to go away. It's always there. So how do we use it to make change in a life? And so can you comment on that? Because I'd love to get your thoughts. That I thought that was insightful it came from a business context, but I think it applies here.
Well, if see, the fear, when you're in that kind of emotional state, right? It actually increases your heart rate. It pumps adrenaline, right? Fear is a trigger. So you can, under that state and then you're also actually in the state of that fear. You're in a hyper awareness state awareness, right? So it's going to do two things. One, it will excite you, pump adrenaline, be hyper aware, and have you outperform, or you go into panic mode.
Fight or flight.
So you panic. So either that fear induces panic, which then that same intensity of energy, the extra adrenaline, all the hyper state, whatever, all goes into this you know a state of comatose almost, or it will heighten your output. So I mean, lack of a better example, whatever. This is uh, this is how martial art is taught, right? So these are the stories. And this is when I learned the watermelon blindfold cut. I learned it when I was out backyard cutting the reeds with a sword. And then Taejoon Lee, my father sitting there by the pond is sitting there, and he says, "Okay, come here." He tells me to come, and he says, "Okay, strike, strike with the sword, and stop right at the top of my head." So right, so here I am. I could panic. I could panic. Here's my dad. I got a live blade. He wants me to go, cut down to his head. What is he thinking? Is he crazy? I could go crazy. I could think of all the negative thoughts. I'm going to cut my dad in half. I'm going to chop him. I'm going to cut him. I'm going to make him bleed. He's gonna give me a spanking. I'm gonna be beat. I'm gonna humiliate myself. I'm gonna hurt my dad. I might maybe kill him. All these things, right? As soon as you go down that path, and exactly that's what you're going to end up doing. So you have to put that aside. You have to have what? Belief. Belief. One, believe in myself. And two, most importantly, he believes in me. So he's telling me to do it. So even if I didn't truly believe it, I have to believe that he knows, because he's my teacher, he's my master, he knows better than me, etc. So, boom, I go and I stop. And he says, "Okay." And he's just sitting there, he doesn't even blink. I stop, boom, right there. And if I would have went, weak, and if I stopped here, then he wouldn't make me do it again. Right? So I had to commit to that one act. Boom! And stop. Boom! And then, okay, with a loud yell, "Cha!" And then I stop, right? I'm all, excited, right? And it says, okay, now you're ready. You're ready to do the cut. Think about it. And then I have my student, right? This is in high school, all right? One of my first students and first black belts from high school. He's my high school student. I lay him down on the table. I put the watermelon. I blindfold, right? And think about this though, right? Think about how crazy this is if you really think about it, right? Okay? We're high school students. He trusts me to lie down with his bare naked stomach to put a watermelon there, and I put a watermelon this way, half, and I cut once like this and cut two here like that, right? So that idea for him to even believe in me that I can do it, and that also, if I imagine all the worst outcome, then another example, right? I'm doing a grand opening of my studio. I'm 16 years old. I have a large school. I'm open. I do the studio. And we have a grand opening demonstration. We invite all people, in the front, in the parking lot. We block off an area, we put mats down, and we do a demo, right? I'm 16 years old, right? So I do a jump side kick break, and I break through 4 concrete slabs. So I normally I jump over maybe about 4 people, right? Bent over halfway like this, bent over. I jump over. He puts 3 more people there. I've only jumped over 4 people. He put 3 more there, right? So what do I do there? Oh no, Dad, I know. Just stop. What are you doing? Right? No. Okay. I run, I go a little further, I scream, I run, I jump, I barely clear the 7th guy, and I break through the concrete. Right? Um, it's it's belief. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right in that you have to have. You said right dream. Well, the problem is having fear, having doubt, it cultivates doubt. It makes you worry. What did I say? It makes you contract. It doesn't make you go outward. It doesn't make you go try new things, take the risk. Well, then you never know. You never can succeed. So your dreams are crushed. You don't have dreams. You don't have possibility. You don't have hope. And when you don't have hope, you have despair. And this is what we have done in the last 2 years. We've inflicted the world with fear, and they've contracted. When you have little kids, when in a history, except kids in war or in war times, have you heard little kids 7, 8 years old say, "Mom, Mommy, I'm afraid to die"? Are you kidding me? When are kids afraid to die? That's worse. What we've done through this COVID, through the lockdown, through all this stuff, we've done worse for our youth. And right now, we don't know. You wait till this generation of children, when they grow up, what they're going to become. You crush them. All right? You crush them. They're afraid to die. Are you kidding? They don't want to go out, do anything. They don't want to meet with their friends. They don't. It's horrible. I can't even imagine what damage that will cause and what it will cost us in our society in the future. We're going to pay.
Yeah, it's I mean, here's the thing, regardless of what you think about the the risk, the virus, all that, it's like what has to go into account is the consequences of what we do. You know, it's not a virus kills us or doesn't kill us. It's like what else can happen based on what we do. And you know, like when we take my son out to play soccer in the park, you know, there's a group that leads them for little kids. My son is the only one that doesn't wear a mask, and it's not because I'm anti-mask. You know, I've been very careful. You know, I chose to be vaccinated, and I took the virus seriously in the beginning. Um, but it's like for my son, minimal risk. He is more important for him is like he doesn't need to be, you know, have something on his face. He's not going
No.
to be comfortable, and there's no risk. He's outside, and but the other kids are wearing it. The parents are wearing it. You see people wearing it in cars, and it's kind of like, are people are just not thinking; they're fearful.
That's my entire point.
Yeah.
The point is, yeah, you're absolutely right. But the thing is, what have we done? We brought all the attention to fear. We
Mhm.
brought all the attention to the consequences, to the negativity, to death, to whatever. Yes, we will die, right? And that's not avoidable one way or another. But the attention is there. In the same way I talk about, when you're skiing, when you're a beginner, you're snowboarded, when you're first learning and
Oh
there's a
man.
tree. There's a tree in front of you, right? There's a tree in front of you. And you have the whole vast mountain is empty, but there's one little tree in front of you, right? And all you can see and think about is that tree. And what happens? You go run right into it. Why? Because you're staring right at it. So all your attention and focus is there, so it takes you right to it. This whole idea of the theory of chaos is the same thing, right? In economics, in sociology, whatever, right? In economics, I think in mainly, and I think this is also the thing uh, uh, where what's his name, George Soros has made a fortune in betting on this idea. People respond in a certain way in fear. That the state of whatever things don't go back to equilibrium. When you're fearful, then their focus on the fear and what they fear becomes a reality. That becomes the truth because all the
Mhm.
attention and energy is there. Whether you're trying to avoid it or not avoid it, it becomes real because the energy and attention and everything is driven toward that.
Mhm.
It's the same way, right? I mean, the way what I'm talking about skiing or snowboarding is in order to go to avoid it, you got to look away. The way you turn, and because the head turns, the body turns, then that's what makes your skis turn or whatever to go another direction. Okay? And all empty. You're staring at it. You can't look away because of fear. Because my goodness, if I look away, I'm going to hit it. Right? So what do? You stare at it, so you hit it.
Mhm.
Why you stare at it? Because you're afraid you're going to hit it. But what happens? Why you hit it? Because you have no control. You're not skilled enough to make the proper turns. So you're physically incapable, right? Fear leads you, you give the attention, so you go right into it.
I think also what overcomes fear, in addition to just the concept of courage, is knowledge. You know, empowering the way Hwarang Do empowered me with knowledge on how to fall, or you empowered me on how to snowboard, so I don't hit the tree. Like knowledge, knowing how, also is empowering.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's right. Knowledge. You need knowledge, and that's what I said in there in the paper. Right. You need knowledge. You need wisdom. The thing about overcoming fear and not following the herd. You have to first of all. Okay, this is also. I mean, what's one of the reasons why I wrote that paper is so I have to deal with some of my students, especially one that completely dumbfounded me. And it is, see, you think it is not a given thing that because somebody has a brain, that we're born as human being, that person would want to know as much as you can, to know what is true, what's false, to know more. So you have to have desire to know in order to gain knowledge. Just because there's knowledge doesn't mean people gain or learn it. What's most important is the desire. Desire. There's much information out there, more information than you can possibly imagine right now, ever in history. And it's what is it doing? It's building exponentially. I don't even know how much information that's being put up in the cloud and through the internet. Incredible amounts, right? So what's our excuse? And that's another ploy, right? What's our excuse? There's so much information out there,
Now,
so
before the excuse was lack of information. Now it's too much information.
exactly. Okay. So it's what you can talk about, people talk about old days or these days, or, it was better then or better this, or you guys have it better now, I know the older generation tell new generations, younger generations, oh, you have it so much better, and you give the sob story about your trials and hardships or whatever. The thing is, in every generation, in every situation, there are opportunities. There have always been opportunities. Whether that you take advantage of them, you make something happen with whatever it is, however little you have, he's going to then create more opportunities. If you sit there and do nothing with it, even with everything you have, then nothing happens. So now we're in a whole generation, the whole thing, right? What's going on now is a generation of people who are blaming, privileged and unprivileged, and they blame everything else in society. Blame. Now, I never thought in my wildest dreams that the idea of race, which actually I have said many years ago, I don't know if you remember, the next war is going to be a race war, and it's happening, right? Are you kidding? This is also, these are the things and notions of people who are a byproduct and consequences of a society that's living well.
Well, one of the things that I think has been to our disadvantage in a way, prior generations had, you could argue, had fewer resources. They don't have as much access to information, especially as we do now. But having abundant resources doesn't make one resourceful.
No,
And
no,
in fact, it's probably made us less resourceful by having too
absolutely,
much at our
absolutely,
disposal.
absolutely. The whole goal in any success, anything, is in, whether it's in economics or in anything you do in martial arts. What's the whole study? It's efficiency. It's efficiency. How do you become efficient? Right? How do you do the most with the least? That's the goal. That's the goal. Right? I've been raised and taught what Taejoon has taught me, and I mentioned this before, I think, he has a saying, right? You make something from something, it's nothing. Right? You make something from nothing, that's something. So every I mean, we're going into some different tangents and whatever, but yeah, it's all foundational, you see. It's all foundational, right? It's if we are raised to be sheep, we'll be sheep, if we are raised as predator, as wolf, we'll be wolf. But the unique power of a human being is that we can stop that pattern. Okay? A sheep can be a wolf can be a sheep. You can make those changes. That is our greatest power, right? And what I'm committed to, right? I don't want. There's a saying, right? It's on the journal that in the Testo journal. Okay, it says leaders are made; they are not born. That's a lie. That's a lie. I've said it. Okay, on the podcast first time, I lied. All right, what actually the quote says: leaders are born; they are not made. All right, that is the whole idea of what this with Nietzsche and so forth. Right, you're born this way. Leaders are born. You can't make leaders. And that's the whole concept of what Hwa Rang Do, what we try to do, what we've been doing. So so you can say, right, my whole life, Taejoon Lee, his whole life, what we've been doing in Hwa Rang Do is we've been trying to take sheep, turn sheep into wolves. Make prey into predator, make slave into master. And guess what? Guess what? It's a terribly, terribly difficult job. All right, filled with disappointments, regrets, betrayal. It doesn't happen. Normally, yes. I give it when several years ago, right? That was my state of being. Before I found faith, before God reached out to me, I gave up. I gave up on humanity. I gave up because I realized the core. Human beings, it's not good. It's not good. Not having faith, you have to believe that the core of human being is good. This is what we want to believe. All right? But not so. Right? People don't change. And it's very hard for people to change. Okay? And because majority of all of us, we are sheep. We are herd. We are herd animals, creatures. We do what everybody else does. We don't want to stick out. We don't speak our voice our opinion. We want to be accepted. And especially now in the social media, it has created now this world where, everybody, I tell people, this whole world I'm looking in front of my eyes, this is back, I feel like I'm going back to high school. I'm going back to high school. It's all about peer pressure. It's all about being liked. It's all about, whoever's most liked, whoever's the popular guy. Everybody wants to be the popular one. This is juvenile. Look at what people in the social media, what social media has done to everybody. Yeah. It's a popularity contest. We're back in high school again. I remember they're lined up. You lined up in the quad, lunchtime, right? You got the most popular guys. You got the jocks. You got the ASB people, right? And then you got the band, the thespians. You got the smokers, the druggies, right? And guess where I sat? I sat way at the end by myself, having my crumb cakes in a thing of carton of milk, all alone. I don't want to be with anybody. I was there. I was the most popular. I got wow, this is not it. This is not it, right? And then what happened? That was my sophomore year. I moved to a new school, right? Then I decided, right? I started teaching Hwa Rang Do there in the club, in the high school, right? I'm like the only Asian kid. There's probably like 3 or 4 people who are Asian in the whole school, all white, right? And I'm sophomore. I go to the vice principal. Every day, can I do this club? He tells me, okay, go. He says, first says no, I keep on bothering him. So he doesn't say no. Okay, you got to do this. Write the Constitution. I write it. He said, no, you got to amend that. You got to change that. Every day for an entire month, I go to his office. So he finally says, okay, all right, he gives up. Okay, you get this. You get this little room. You get this little room next to the girls' locker room. It's a martial arts club. All right. He gives me to in the next to the to the girls' locker room. Are you kidding me? Small little room. It's like a storage room. All right, fine. I do it. Guess what I had? The whole school. It's a school of less than 1,200 students. Right. First I open. I have like 100 kids. Okay, 10% of the population. So anyway, I start running the club and doing whatever for several years, right? So what do I do on senior year? I want to, get to my point. Senior year, I said, you know what? I want to do something here. All right, make a difference. So yeah, I could have run for secretary. I could have run for whatever. I'd say, you know what? I'm going to run for president. So I run for president, right? And all my, I got a lot of students. Maybe I can make this happen, right? So I go to the president, and they do the whole thing, homeroom. They have a couple of students from each homeroom, electoral college thing, right? So they do a pre election thing. I go give my speech. There's two guys, one football guy, right, very popular, one girl, and me, okay, right? One Italian, one white girl, me. Right, so we go to the homeroom, the representatives of the homeroom. There's about 30 of them, whatever it is. We all give our speech. I get like half the vote. I win. I win it easy. Okay, and then we're not supposed to do anything with the speech, right? But the guy who was the current president didn't like me. He helped the girl rewrite her speech. Okay, so, all right. So we go to the whole assembly, the whole school, and we do the speech. And guess where they placed me? They put I think I went first, and they put the girl second, and they put the other guy third. And my whole speech was about dreams, since we're talking about it. Yes, I was a dreamer. I had the Martin Luther King inspiration, right? To dream. And that's what you need when you're young, right? To make big dreams. Why dream small? Dream big type of thing. So I do this, and then, she comes in, she changes the speech, and the whole thing's, do you really want a dreamer for a leader? Right? And then the third guy, gives his speech. Okay, fine.
Anti-dream
Right?
speech.
Yeah. So exactly. It's all geared toward me, right? Okay, so anyway, so I'm very upset. Oh yeah, they changed the speech. They're not supposed to do that. It's against the rules. Da da da. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. So guess what really happened? What happens? What happens? The girl won. You know why she won? What end of the day? What happened is the me and the other guy, we split all the guys' votes, and she got all the girls' votes. That's it. Now, why am I saying this whole thing? I'm trying to tell you, okay? We're in high school, right? And that is our state of affairs in the world. It is a popularity contest, whether it's government running the most powerful position in the entire world, to the little person running making fat checks, these influencers or whatever it is on the social media, who's making money, millions of dollars, making stupid content, ridiculous things that have actually no social value or significance, just for popularity. It's a popularity contest. And you know what? I hated high school for that. And I hate the world in that way, that what it's turning out to be.
Yeah, it's well, sir, you've talked about like the whole point of Hwa Rang Do and what Dojinim and you have been doing is trying to turn sheep into leaders, sheep into wolves. Well, I'll share something with you. Hopefully, give you a little hope. You
I
know,
okay.
you
I went,
and we're doing this live, so it's like if you remember Matt, you
Ma-
know, Matt, who was my student, and then referred him to you for coaching,
oh yeah,
mentoring.
yeah, yeah, Matt. Yes.
Um, well, I think it was 10 years ago that I started working with Matt,
Yeah.
and just to give a little background, Matt, like type 1 diabetic his entire
Yeah.
life, not by
Yeah.
choice, not because of
Yeah.
lifestyle or anything.
Right. Right.
But as a result, he was fearful. He was a pudgy kid.
Yeah.
Um, he didn't do certain activities. He always was attached to the insulin pump.
Yeah.
And so that limited him. But I started working with him on the business side of it. He wanted to start his own business
Yeah.
and be independent of his job.
Yeah.
And but there was a lot of stuff in his
Yeah.
head
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
related to how how he grew up and just the circumstances that he was in
Yeah.
that you supported him, helped him with.
Yeah.
And I got to say it was like a slow turn for him.
Yeah.
It was like turning him around to dream big and believe in himself and not let the doubt overcome was like turning the Titanic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
working with him. Well, sir, after 10 years of him
Yeah.
not giving up, no matter how slowly he
Yeah.
progressed,
Yeah.
obviously part of it he became a CrossFitter and became
Yeah.
really fit
Uh.
and was doing probably extreme exercises and all types of stuff that he previously didn't do, so he turned his health around. But what also happened is he actually achieved his dream business wise. He had his last month he profited 80,000 in his business, which
Wow.
was the biggest accomplishment he's ever done.
Wow. That's
and
great.
and so it took him basically 10 years to turn that ship, to go from like being depressed and out of
Yeah.
shape
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sorry for
Yeah. Yeah.
himself, all that stuff.
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
But I think it is possible, sir, to make that
No.
transformation, but the
Yeah.
other person has to do the work.
It absolutely. No, no, no. I mean, let me no, I don't of course, when I say hard and I'm disillusioned and all that, all that stuff, yes, because majority of it
Right.
is that case.
I mean,
But it's the
who's gonna trudge through for 10 years and like
yeah,
continue to
yeah,
struggle
yeah.
and not
But
give up?
but we have many. But I have many success stories. Many, many. So and so so we persist.
Mhm.
And but the thing is for us, even without that success, right? That's what you should do, right? It doesn't. This is my point, right? Whether if you believe in something, right, if you believe in something and you want and that's what's important to you and you have that belief, then whether you're rewarded by it or not, whether you get the return, you do it because you believe it. It's like what I keep saying all the time, right? It's not you do it because it's profitable. You do something that benefits you. You have to do it because it's the right thing to do. The way to live life is that you do it because it's right. It's the right thing. It's
But
the
also,
right thing.
I think even if you ask Matt, the journey itself has been valuable. It wasn't like now he's happy and now he's healthy and now he's you know creating opportunity for himself. He's been happy. He was happy throughout the journey, as
Yeah,
long as he was doing something
yeah,
to continue to improve, to get
yeah,
better, get
yeah,
healthier, all that.
yeah,
That was actually what probably gave
yeah.
him and
Well,
others the most
that.
happiness.
Well, see, that has to be his focus. Is my point.
Mhm.
Because he made $80,000, because he made more money, because he
That's
whatever.
not what brought him the
That
happiness.
those are that's not going to give him the happiness.
Right.
That's not going to give him happiness. You know.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go on a journey for 10 years for health and for business and wealth and mental wellness and do that for 10 years and be unhappy throughout it. You have to learn to enjoy the journey. And I think that's
Yeah,
ultimately what happened
yeah,
with him
yeah.
and
Well,
many others.
so the point being, right? The point we're getting at, or what the deal, what we're talking about, See, you have to have hope. You have to have a belief, right? And you endure and you stay on the path. And so, if you are, thinking of, oh, I can't, what you can't do, I can't do this, what if that, what if this, all the what if, coulda, woulda, shoulda stuff, and what if, and if you focus on that possibility, that negativity, if you focus on the worst things, if you focus on the tree, this is exactly what's going to happen, right? So you have to continue in the sense of having a positive attitude, not letting the negative, not letting fear take hold, take control, because that is going to make you self-destructive. And this is what I'm saying. That's what evil wants. Evil wants human beings to fail, to be self-destructive, to lose. Then evil wins. So I on the what I said from the very beginning, right? That's the hardest thing. What I find is is what's the most difficult thing is creating the desire, right? Creating the desire, and this is often why a lot of people has to hit rock bottom. It has to go to the very worst, that whole situation, fight or flight, to the position where they can't, there's no more place to run or hide. And unfortunately, a lot of people, when they are faced with that, right, it's dark. It's a dark place, and they, instead of making that change in their life, they choose the other. So we have this high rate of suicide and so forth, right? Huh? In these great times, in these most prosperous times, we have a high rate increase of suicide in our youth. This is horrible, and it's fear. Fear.
So there's in your New Year's message, you shared something that's empowering, especially during these times. Again, regardless of where people stand at of with COVID thing, whatever's going on, what's empowering, and I think we're seeing it now, where people are just kind of saying, you know what, I need to go back to live my life, or my kids need to go back to being kids, and regardless, we're going to take whatever risk we want to take, and that's our choice. um we are seeing a lot of people now, not extremists, but just normal people saying no, it's enough. And you touch on that ability, we have as human beings in your
Yeah.
paper,
Yeah.
on saying no. And I'd love
Yeah.
if you can kind of share about that,
Yeah.
about the empowerment that the word no brings us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. The question of free will has been debated by philosophers and theologians all throughout history, right? The idea of free will, right? And we can we talk about that endlessly. But my point that I'm making is, whether there's free will or not, the one thing that you have the free will. You know, you have the will. Instead of free will, you have the free won't. So you have the free will to say no, to not do what people expect you to do, what it is predetermined, what it is that we were nurtured, or how we were raised, or what our DNA, or what our tendency, what our social influence, what our parental influence, conditioning, whatever it is, social conditioning, that molds us in doing, thinking that we're going to do one. We have the power to go against that and not do that and say no. So that is our true power, actually. It's not the free will to do. but the free will, the will to say no, right? Um, and what does that mean? That requires courage. See, that requires courage. That requires then you facing up to your fears, etc., in order to have courage, right? And then when you're not under that stress, then you have clarity of mind. And now you can think independently, and you see, even though everybody's doing what they're doing and you don't agree, now you have the opportunity to say no. I just leave it with one example, right? I've said this before. Okay, so you have somebody that jumps off a cliff, one person. Okay, you go, wow, what a crazy person, you know? So you see, like, maybe hold, like, okay, now you see like 10 people jump off a cliff. And then now you see 1,000 people. Now you see 10,000, 100,000, million. Let me ask you, right? If 7 billion people, everybody on the face of the earth, decides to jump off a cliff, my question to you is, will you do it? See, it takes some type of person when all 7 billion people jump off a cliff and you go, you know what, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that.
No, because most people will go, I wonder what's over the cliff. They keep doing it.
All right. That's our power. And for me, I mean, this is why also I'm doing the podcast. This is why I'm teaching, and what Taejoon Lee, my father, what Hwarang Do has been doing, what I've been doing. We have been swimming upstream, right? We do all the things that most people, they say you shouldn't do or can't do or whatever it is. No, that has nothing to do with it. We are one of the oldest martial arts historically and also in the modern era, and we're probably one of the smallest. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Because I'm not doing this to please anybody. I'm doing this not for popularity. I'm doing it because I believe in it, and I believed in the power of, of the human spirit, and that yes, each individual can transform themselves to be better, and all we can do is try and help. It doesn't mean that I can change people. I used to think that I can. Now I don't. That's not me. I can't change anybody. Only God, only Christ can change anyone, really. Okay? But, we need to show the way. We need to support. And if they, and try, because that's the right thing to do.
Well, thank you, sir, for this conversation. I think it's needed for the new year, for this current time, and I hope people reflect on it and take to heart the message and reflect on where we can be better, where we're
Yeah.
allowing fear to run our lives, maybe in not every area of your life, but maybe some part of your life. And I think that reflection is worth the time spent. So
Yeah, this podcast went pretty fast, I mean, but this is not the end. So, I will continue to discuss, and overcoming fear is one of the most important things as a human being that we must do. So we'll continue on with this, because I was just telling you, I was just getting started. So we'll follow up in our other podcasts. Thank you, Fernie. Happy New Year,
happy New Year, sir.
and God bless you with much fortune, health, and happiness. And I'll see you next time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, very good. Hold on.